then a Smash Burger fundraiser this coming week. We also have a D&I meeting this April 8th, and then the PVMA banquet. Again, if you haven't signed up, please do that. Again, we're sending everything out in the email this upcoming week, as well as in the group meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to come talk to one of us at the end. CFACE and SAVMA reminders. Today was the last CFACE meeting for the year, and then the last SAVMA meeting for the year will be April 7th. We do have a club recognition as well. It's going to be Buckeye Bunnies. Meetings are on Tuesday, 6 p.m. I know a couple of us on the e-board are currently involved in that club in some capacity, so you're welcome to come up and talk to us at the end if you want. If you have questions or want to inquire for more information on that as well. Another thing that will be sent out in the group meet tonight is an interest form. It kind of goes over all the speakers and some of the events that we had this past year. It just, if you guys could take a minute or two of your time to go ahead and fill that out, it'll help us a lot with planning events and meetings next year, especially when it determines what kind of speakers you want and what kind of background, small animal, farm and all specialists, that sort of thing as well. Right, nice and quick for you. Without further ado, our guest speaker today is Sandra Dawkins. She is the current Director of Admission and Recruitment for the Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine. We are super excited to welcome her back for the second year in a row to talk to you guys, answer some questions about admissions. So I will go ahead and let her introduce herself and take it away.
Hey everybody, I'm Sandra. I'm just going to go through this presentation really quickly, and then really this is about answering the questions that you might have about admissions, about the College of Veterinary Medicine, whatever I can answer for you, I'm happy to do that. So, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, I'm sure all of you know, it's a 4-year program. You do 2.75 years of coursework, classroom, labs, surgery, hands-on activities. Now, in March of your 3rd year is when you move into your clinical rotations. And so at that time, you would pick your career area of emphasis. So what do you want to do? We have a small animal, food farm, large animal, equine, mixed, and individualized. So everything that doesn't fit in those 4 is individualized. One of the individualized is a spectrum of care. And so that is if you want to work primarily in small animal, and you want to work at a clinic and learn how to provide the spectrum of care, what people can afford, gold standard versus I just want to get you patched up because you don't have the funds to afford every test in the world. You learn how to do that. Admissions process, eligibility for application, completion of all your prerequisite courses, which I'll show you shortly. We need transcripts from every college course you've ever taken. That includes those ones you took as dual credit in high school, every college course. So many students forget those, you took that class at the community college when you were in the 11th grade, and then your application doesn't get verified, and then we don't review it. So please, every college course you've ever taken needs to be turned into VMCAS. Veterinary and animal experience, community service and volunteer service, that's with people. So if all you've ever done is vet med, do something else. 3 letters of recommendation. 1 must be from a veterinarian. The other 2 can be to anybody who can speak to what you're bringing to the table, your skill set, etc. And then the VMCAS, and then we have a supplemental application at Ohio State. What other things did we look at? Demonstrated leadership, your communication and interpersonal skills through the interview, extracurricular activities, and research. If you have it, great. If you don't, it's not that big a deal. Courses. We have 4 capstone courses. Biochemistry, microbiology with a lab, physiology, and communications. Those are the only things we tell you you have to take, are those 4 classes. But we also require 35 semester hours of sciences. That's whatever you want to take. Any sciences you want to take, 35 semester hours, and 16 semester hours of social sciences or humanities. Usually your GECs will cover that 16 hours, but those are important as well. Of those 4 You can only have one C in these 4 classes, and you have to have a cumulative GPA of 3.0 in these 4 classes. The minimum GPA to be considered is a 3.2. Between a 3.0 and a 3.2, if you have an extenuating circumstance, so like if a semester something happened, somebody got sick, you got sick, your mama got sick, you were in an accident, life, there's a form called an extenuating circumstances form. You can petition to be reviewed. That's between a 3.0 and a 3.2. Anything below a 3.0, we do not consider. Please don't waste your money and apply, because we won't look at it. Other schools may, and I encourage you to apply there, but if it's below a 3.0, we will not look at it. We don't require any standardized testing, so no GRE or MCAT required. This is the timeline for this year. It varies a little bit of the day, but this is kind of a generalization. The application is open now. Our supplemental will start to go out July 1st to those students who have been verified. So you won't get the Ohio State supplemental application until your VMCAS application has been verified. Once it's verified, it takes about 7 to 10 days. You'll get the supplemental application. A lot of times it goes to your spam mail, so check that. You sign into Buckeye Link, fill out the application. It takes a solid 10 minutes. You pay the fee, and then we get your information after that. September 15th is the hard deadline. There's no wiggle room on that. September 15th at 11:59 Eastern time. So all of your transcripts, all your applications, and everything needs to be in at that time. We send out, it says November to January, we send out interview invites around December 20th or so. That week right before your winter break is usually when you get your interview invite. We interview in January and February. And then all of the offers go out early February, and then you have to make your decision by April 15th. So this past year, it says about 3,000. It was 3,200 applications for the class of 2029. So that's the class that starts in the fall for 165 seats. We interview about 550 people of that 3,200, and it's a 30-minute interview. It's those behavioral questions, tell me about a time when, and then there's one situational judgment. I don't know what it's gonna look like when you all apply, but that's what it looks like right now. This is the class of 2028. This is probably about the class of 2027, 2026. It's always looked like this since about 2015. The only thing that changes is maybe the percentage of men to women, somewhere between 80 and 85 and 20 and 15%. You guys know about Ohio State, you know the things, so I'm just gonna kind of flip through that. So the curriculum, in the beginning, you're looking at healthy animals. That's first semester. You're learning what a healthy animal looks like. And then you do sick animals, and then you do kind of how to find what's wrong with them. So they're teaching you whole animal health. And then, like I said, in March of your 3rd year, you're done with all your classes and you're going into clinics. So before, you would do that in May. They've moved that back about 8 weeks. So you have an extra week, 8 weeks in clinics that people who graduated before this upcoming class, 2026, they're the first group that will have this extra time in clinics. So we have a MPH DVM combo program, so it's a 4+1. We have a business minor, so as an Ohio State vet student, it's just for health sciences, so it'll only be health science students. So the business minor is focused on running your own clinic, having your own that way. We have a summer scholarship program, and then we have all 7 health sciences right on campus, so you have the chance to do some collaborative work with other health sciences. We have the largest veterinary medical center in Ohio and the surrounding area. There's 4 separate hospitals, and we see about 70,000 patient visits a year, so there's a lot of opportunity for hands-on. So So the companion animal hospital, hospital for farm animals, and we're including Marysville Ambulatory Clinic with that. We have a Galbraith Equine Center and the Spectrum of Care Clinic. If you haven't been on the vet campus lately, it's just in the parking lot. And so we have a range of specialties from behavior to burial genealogy and everything in between. So if you have an interest, it can be investigated at the college. We do have a partnership with the Wilds and the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium and the Conservation Medicine Program for you exotics wildlife folk, and a lot of opportunity, like I said, for interpersonal education with the other health sciences. Tuition. Obviously, that'd probably go up by a couple of percentages as it does, but this is what it was. I'd like to put professional income opportunities based on your area of interest. The low is in the gray, median is the blue. In the dark blue, mean is the kind of greenish blue, and then the green is the high. So you can kind of get an idea of what 2023 looked like as far as income. Debt. So the people that graduated with debt are in blue, and the people, all the graduates are in orange. So the orange ones didn't have any undergraduate debt. So the blue was debt across the thing, the orange didn't have any undergraduate debt. The distribution of debt, this is what 16.7 had no debt, and then you kind of look. Looks like most of the people either had no debt or between 140 and 190. It's 4 quick years, and I'll open the floor for questions. What can I answer for y'all? About the process, about the program, what it looks like. Help me help you.
So, what would you say is the ratio between like in-person classes and hands-on clinics, like labs and things like that?
So most of your in-person stuff are labs. There are some required classes, but most of the classes now are kind of asynchronous learning. There are some, but most of the time you're on campus is because you have a lab of some sort of hands-on, or you have, all students have to do shifts in the SOCC, or SOCC shift. So probably maybe 60 to 70% hands-on lab and 30 to 40% you're sitting in class.
What kind of opportunities are available through your partnership with Columbus Zoo and Aquarium?
So we have some internships. Dean Moore is on the board, so like he greases some wheels for our students to get some access. But once you get over there, they have a list of things that you can do. Most of it is around internships, externships, that type of thing. I will say we don't treat exotics at the hospital, so if that's your interest, you have to do a little bit more work to get those things that you want. They're available, it's just a little bit more on you to find those opportunities for yourself.
What kind of support does the school offer for licensing exams?
So like a whole bunch now. So they have classes, they have vet prep, zoo, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. The faculty come in and go over certain species. If there's something you feel like you need, we work with the class president to try to provide that. So that has really been an area of focus lately, and so quite a bit. And then if it's not there, asking, and usually it appears magically. So I think if you want support, the support is there. But I'll tell anybody, you have to be willing to advocate for yourself. You go to Ohio State, you know there's a lot of resources, but if you don't ask, it doesn't happen. So you have to really advocate for yourself.
Based on past applicants that you've accepted, what stands out on your resume?
The stuff that's not veterinary animal related. And number one, you know, everybody talks about holistic admissions. Every school has holistic admissions. Holistic just means we look at other things besides grades. That doesn't mean grades are not important. Grades are important and they count at every vet school. So don't, I was doing so much that I let my grades slip. That's not gonna fly, because then they say, there's a lot going on in vet school, or your grade's gonna slip at this level. So grades, we figure you're gonna have veterinary animal experience. So it's really a lot of times the other stuff that makes the biggest difference. What kind of things you've done with people, what have you done extracurricularly? Do you have a real life job where you have to deal with people? Is your essay worth a damn? Do you have a good letter of reference? Those things tend to make the bigger difference than just grades and experience. But you need both of those and everything else.
So is going to Ohio State undergrad and applying no correlation?
Just because there's a lot of y'all get in, but it doesn't, their percentages aren't different based on, you have access that some other schools don't have, but it doesn't make a difference.
Is there a certain number of the 165 seats reserved for in-state students?
Reserved is a strong word. There's probably about a 90 out-of-state students. So that means, I can't do math, the rest are in-state students. That's what it's been broken down as. It's based on scores. So there's not a reserve, like, we are going to take 85 Ohio students. It doesn't. We don't do that. But that's how it usually breaks down. About 300 Ohio students apply, not Ohio State students, but Ohio students apply. And then about 80 of them end up with a seat. So the percentage is better if you're an Ohio student. You have more of a chance to get in, but, there's 2,500 others from all the other states, so.
What does the process look like for getting an internship or residency program following vet school as an Ohio State student?
So once you get into your final year, you start looking for, it's a match program. So just like in Human Med, you fill out these applications, you put your school, and then you try to match them. There's interviews. They do go over that. They have presentations about the match. About 35 to 40% of our students end up in internships or residencies. Some of them outside of the match, but about 35 to 40%.
Thank you.
Are there any certain qualities that you look for specifically in the personal statement?
Answer the question. No, seriously. People try to figure out what we're really looking for, but on the question, they have prompts. If you answer those and then use like good grammar and, do the things you should do when you're writing an essay, that's usually sufficient. It doesn't have to be like all deep and philosophical and, esoteric. Just answer the question with decent grammar and spelling, honestly.
Is there anything specific you recommend doing to prepare for the interview?
I would try to interview with people who don't know me, who I'm not so comfortable with. Here's the key to the interview. They're gonna ask you a question. You're gonna answer it. Then you're gonna say what you learned from whatever it was, that situation, whatever they asked you. And then the third part that a lot of people do, how are you gonna use what you learned to be successful in vet school and beyond? So connect those dots for your interviewers. Tell me about a time when you had to do something. When I was in the 9th grade, I had to blah, blah, blah. And from that, I learned blah, blah, blah. And this is gonna help me be successful in vet school because now I know how to blah, blah, blah. So if you kind of take that task and you're hitting all those points, that'll make a more robust interview. There is a situational judgment where they ask you, if this happened, what would you do? Just try to answer it fully and really think about it, and don't ever say you wouldn't do that. Because you might not, but what they're trying to see is, can you put yourself in that situation? How would you deal with it? What would you do? And actually, you probably would, because, you know, you're in a situation that's different, so just kind of go with it that way, just answer the question, don't, we had so many people say, I would never do that. And if they get in, they're the first ones that do it. So, you know, just kind of think about it and answer the question.
In your experiences section on the application, are you looking for something similar to that interview style where you say like what you gained from that experience?
No, just make sure you let us know. All we know about you is what you tell us, so don't just say, I shadowed Dr. Jones. Because if I shadowed Dr. Jones, I'm gonna sit in that chair and look at it. But that's not what they're looking for. So they're looking for you doing something, participating. So you don't necessarily have to go to that, I learned this, but just, you know, I did blood draws and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You just wanna make sure that it's really clear what you did in those experiences. And if it's a multi-species experience, make sure it's clear how many hours that you did. So if it's an exotics and a small animal, make sure you differentiate between the hours in exotics and small animals so you get credit for both.
To follow up, would you put those as two separate experiences or would you enter it as one and then in the description separate?
I would probably make it as easy for your reviewers as possible and do it twice.
Okay.
And pick one small animal and how many hours and one exotics and how many hours. You don't have to, they just have to read more.
Okay, thank you.
And then you're flipping a coin for people.
Yeah.
What are the common mistakes that applicants make?
Thinking that because it's not veterinary related, we don't wanna know about it. That's the biggest thing. Oh, I didn't think you guys would be interested in that. Like, you know, you worked at Starbucks, I didn't think you'd be interested in that. Absolutely. You know what you can learn from having to deal with crazy people getting coffee and, you know, those kinds of things. That literally is the biggest issue. When I look at an application and all I see are grades and experience, I'm like, you have to have done something else in your life. And I don't know what it is because you didn't tell me. So that is really important.
A follow-up on that outside experience that you were talking about, how far back would you recommend that we go with those experiences? Like just starting when you hit college or high school? Or?
So if in high school it sets up a pattern, you can do it in high school. But if high school and you don't do it in college, we're not gonna count high school. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So we're looking at college, but if you started the experience in high school, include it. I say include everything, like throw it at the wall and let us decide what sticks. Because then you're gonna hit all the schools, so if you apply to more to Ohio State, other schools look at different things, other schools go back further. So just put it on there, and then if we're not gonna count it, we won't.
Does having a W-1 transcript significantly impact?
Nobody sees your transcripts with me. And I don't care.
When looking at applications, how do you take into consideration that just because of the sheer number of people that apply, most people's experiences aren't unique or new?
So for veterinary and animal experience, we're looking that you have them. We're looking that you did hands-on clinical stuff. And that's why I say the other stuff is so important, because that's what will differentiate you, because all of you are smart, you tend to have pretty good grades, you tend to have veterinary and animal experiences that everybody has. The other things tend to be what those, and it's usually like 1/10 of a point. It's so minute that those things are what make the difference.
How much does it matter if you were to take like chem at your like home community college rather than
So
taking
to
it
us,
here?
it doesn't. If you're applying somewhere else, it might.
Would you say, is there like a good split of working with different animals that have some application?
So we're looking for a minimum of 50 hours per species. In one of those species, that's when we have two separate scores, a diversity score, which is that 50 hours, and then a depth score. So the depth score in one of those species, you have to show us that you did good hands-on veterinary clinical experience. So how that shakes out, you could have it in all of them, you can have it, but it's two separate scores, so you can have, you know, worked on your, you know, worked with horses in the barn for 50 hours, and then you milked cows for 50 hours, but then in your small animal, you were in a clinic and you did hands-on, you know, blood draws and x-rays and whatever, that would be your death score, which would be higher, but your diversity score, you would still get the points for all of the species that you hit. So that's small animal, food farm, equine, exotics, wildlife, and then research counts in that category as well. And the research doesn't have to be animal-based. The research is research, it's just knowing how to research.
Does undergraduate major affect admissions?
No, don't care.
How would you recommend getting experiences, specifically the blood draws and stuff, in a state that requires a technician's license?
So the key to that is if you have to shadow, make sure that you're asking the questions, you're participating as much as you can. We know you can't do certain things, so you have to be able to write it in such a way that made you a part of the process, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
How many schools would you recommend applying to?
So I don't like to recommend applying. The data says people who apply between 3 and 5 schools have the most success. Over 5, that number doesn't change, but under 3, that number changes. So apply to as many as you want, but between 3 and 5 is kind of where you peak. I think more important is really looking at the schools you're applying to, seeing who is looking for what you bring to the table. Now I hear people say, well, my dream school is insert school here. Well, what about that is your dream school? What do you know about that school that makes it your dream? And why is it your dream? Your dream school should be the one you can get into. It's 4 years. You can deal with whatever for 4 years. It doesn't have to be an optimal, I mean, you need to be safe physically, spiritually, mentally, all of that. But the rest of it, figure it out. We're grown. You can be away from home for 4 years. You can live in the country for 4 years. You can live in the city for 4 years. You can figure it out. But really look at the schools that match what you're bringing to the table. Some schools look for GPA really heavily. So if you have a 4.0, I would suggest you look at those schools. If your GPA is a little bit lower, look at the schools that don't count GPA quite as heavily, and you have all this experience, count this. This school looks at this. So really kind of investigate and see which schools provide what you bring to the table.
Are there any minors that would stand out on an application?
No. I mean, if you can work your minor into like your essay, like why this is important to what you're doing, if you can, you know, tell a story with it, that's great, but what I want you to major and minor in is what you're gonna be happy doing if you don't get into that school. I'm sure all of you will get in, but if you don't, do you have a degree that will help you get a job and live life happily? That's what you should major in, that's what you should minor in. And then if it's music, just take the prerequisites and get your music degree. We have a musical theater major in her 4th year. She has a musical theater degree from NYU. And she's about to graduate high school. She's one of our top students academically and like socially, like she's cool. You know?
How do personal demographics play a role in it?
They don't. They're completely blinded. They don't know a thing about you outside of what you write and your experiences. So they don't know race, they don't know gender, they won't even have your name. It will be your them cast number.
Thank you.
When you don't get in, what kind of feedback do you get? I assume
You reach out and we'll tell you these are the areas that you need to strengthen. It's obviously no guarantee because the applicant pool changes every year, but if you ask, we'll tell you.
As far as the depth score goes, does it matter what species you do?
No.
Okay.
Just pick one. Or 2, or whatever. But no, points for small animal death. It doesn't matter, we're just looking for that you got good hands-on experience in one of those species.
Okay, does something like a master's program add to your application?
GPA wise? Otherwise, no.
Okay.
How do you have nervousness?
So they know you're gonna be nervous, but part of being a professional is getting past it. So figuring out how to breathe or kick the underside of your table, it's a Zoom interview, they can't see you from the waist down. Pinch your leg, you know, whatever you have to do to get through it, that's a part of the interview. So, you know, we obviously know you're going to be nervous, but can you get through it, can you figure it out? You're probably gonna be nervous in clinics. So are you gonna be able to get through it? Are you gonna be able to navigate where you're uncomfortable and you hate everybody and those things come into play, so, yeah. We recognize you will be, the expectation is that you figure it out.
What resources or programs does OSU have to help prepare students for real life practice and to help prevent burnout?
So that's what the SOCC is trying to prepare you for practice. We have 2 embedded therapists in the college, so not the health people that are here, the counselors that are for all undergrads. We have 2 that are just for us, and a psychiatrist that comes once a week that talk about burnout and provide information. There's a health and wellness program, the Be Well program. They really do consider it. Are you gonna get burned out? Probably. Will you have the skills to navigate that? Probably. And I think that's the difference. It's hard. Vet school is hard. But will you have the skills to do it? Absolutely. And so that's, I think people get in and they freak out because, and I shouldn't say it's hard, the volume of material is immense. It's like drinking from a water hose, from a fire hose. And so learning how to navigate the material, what's important, what's not, using your reasoning skills, like I don't need that. Figuring that out is the key to being successful in vet school. And I think they teach you that if you're willing to learn that. We have a whole office of teaching and learning, and that's what they do, is try to teach you how to learn.
Okay, I was gonna say, going off that, I've heard the number like 21 credit hours is pretty similar to like, if you compare it to undergrad, what your course load is. Do you have a number similar?
It's probably more like 23, but
Okay.
when you think about 23, think about 23 of upper level science courses. 23 hours of upper level science courses. Not, underwater basket weaving and astronomy, but your upper level, 23 semester hours of upper level science courses at the same time, every semester.
So for like leadership positions, do you look at like the context, like what kind of club it is, or do you just like look at it as a leadership?
You just need to, and leadership comes a little, you put it on your application and it counts, but in the interview, that's something as well. So even if you aren't the president, vice president, you need to be able to verbalize how you were a leader in whatever position. And if you're not a leader, I'm not trying to lead nothing. If you're a follower, knowing how to verbalize that and the support of the leadership. So a lot of it is how you present yourself. You can make anything fit if you can figure it out. And I think that's really important. You don't have to go out and be the president of all the clubs. Yeah, that's fantastic if that's what you want to do, but if that's not who you are naturally, you can figure out how to find where you fit. We don't want 165 presidents, because that hurts my head. Brutus is out.
If you apply your first cycle and you don't get in, and then like you take the year off and you reapply, the second year, does that hinder or like affect your application the second time at all?
No.
Okay.
So you would have different reviewers, and unless you put it in somewhere, they won't even know.
Okay.
So, but the expectation is that you have done something in that year to to strengthen your application. Because if you didn't get in once, you're probably not gonna get in if you didn't do anything else.
How does animal experience within your coursework relate to on your application?
You can put it, we don't look at it that strongly, just because you have to do it. So we're kind of looking at stuff that you don't necessarily have to do, and you've taken the initiative to do. So that, I mean, yeah, it's great, but it doesn't,
Like
they
if
don't
it was
hold the
something
same
additional
regard.
you signed up for,
Right.
that's better than something
Right,
else.
exactly.
Thank you.
What is like the biggest, turn off in an application that you see?
I think everybody's is a little different. For me, I'm not a vet. I really don't care about vet stuff. So what's important for me is the other stuff. I think being able to communicate in writing and in verbally effectively is really important. Like I said, all we know is what you tell us. So if you don't tell us, then we don't know, or if you kind of eyeshadow Dr. Jones, that's great. You know, and so I can't score that. Great, she shadowed that, I don't know what she did. And so just really focusing on putting your best foot forward in your application and not leaning on the fact that you did that, but I don't know what you did. I don't know Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones might be, I don't know, terrible. So really sharing who you are as a person, like I said, this is the only way we get to know you. So you have to really dial in to the you want us to know. Yeah, I can't stand a 4.0 student who hasn't done anything else. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, yeah, you got a 4.0, you didn't do nothing else. I could get a 4.0 if I was doing nothing else. So that's my personal pet peeve bias. So I want you to have a 4.0 if you can get that and all the other stuff. But I'll take a 3.6 with some stuff all day long.
Are there any guidelines somewhere for how you can count like raising livestock for circuit shows or like 4-H? Because
So there aren't really, I say just do your best to, we know it's gonna be a lot of hours, just do your best to guesstimate. We don't expect you to like do tick marks every hour, but just kind of a general idea of how much time you spend. And the people who are reviewing your apps are vets, so they kind of know, a lot of them know what that takes and the time involved, so you would get credit for that.
thank you.
In the animal experience, but not the veterinary experience.
Right.
Do connections within the OSU vet school, do those make any impact on the appearance of your application?
I mean, it's nice for you to get the experience, but we try to go out of our way, because that's inherently inequitable. Just because you know someone, you get an extra boost. I don't like that, because I don't know nobody, so. But yeah, I mean, it helps connections. It may help once you get in, because you know that kind of navigation, but in the application process, it doesn't make a difference. I will say, I'll caveat that, if you get a letter of reference from someone and it's not good, and they know that person, they're going to more strongly count that not good reference, because they know Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones is the best doctor ever, and they didn't like Sally, so Sally must be terrible. That's gonna hurt. But otherwise, it's not gonna hurt.
In terms of veterinary experience, is shadowing valued lesser than like actually working in a certain clinic?
No.
Okay.
Shadow, paid, whatever. Just get the experience.
So for the letters of rec, would you, like, is it preferred if one comes from an instructor?
There's no preference. Just make sure that whoever you ask for, don't just ask for a letter of reference, ask for a good one. Be willing to use those words. Are you willing to write me a good letter of reference, a positive letter of reference? And if they can't speak to who you are, then that's not the person. You want someone who can not just circle a 5 in a 4x4 write a narrative about the skills and what you're bringing to the table as a potential veterinarian or a potential vet student. And, you know, if they hesitate, move on. Like, don't get a bad letter of reference. A good one is nice and will help you, but a bad one will kill you.
So to follow up on that, do you get to like see the letters of reference, or is it like anonymous, like it's for college?
So yeah, so you have to, when you're filling out your application, when you put the recommenders' names in VMCAS, there's a little button you have to check that you can't see the letters. But on the feedback, if they're bad, I tend to say, who you asked for a letter of reference. That's like a key to not ask those people again.
If you have more than 3 letters of recommendation, you get to choose like which 3.
We'll review them all, but if you have more than 3, make sure all of them are good. Because if you have 4 and just one of them, not even maybe the one you wanted to use, if that's the one that's gonna reach you. So they review all of them.
What undergraduate courses help students the most when they're in vet school?
I think the ones that, the core courses that we ask you to take, that physiology, a lot of this terminology. So coming in, knowing the words, I think is helpful. Biochemistry, anything where you're in a course that makes you reason, you having to figure some stuff out, that helps, whatever that course looks like. Like any course where it's not a rote memorization, but you have to figure stuff out, that's what'll help, because you'll learn how to reason, and you can take that forward.
In terms of the interview, I know they always say to ask questions like to your interviewer. What are some questions that you would recommend asking?
I mean, what would you want to know?
Right.
Like seriously, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's that deep to ask a question if you really don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's something you want to know, ask. A lot of them are alums, and they may not know currently what's going on, but they do reach out to us, and then I'll follow up if you have a legitimate question that you want to know. So, you know, ask about, and if you can't, ask them about their journey. You know, they like to talk. Ask them, you know, or ask them things like, what would you do differently? If you don't have a specific question about the interview or the school or whatever, ask them about them. That's the easiest way to get a question in.
When it comes to animal experience and you're looking at things like taking livestock through 4-H and FFA, is that kind of viewed as like, oh, they did that as a kid, or is that like valuable experience to you?
So it goes back to that thread.
Okay.
If you only did livestock when you were 7 and you've never done it again, I don't care about your 7-year-old livestock. If you started at 7 and you continued all the way through college, then that tells me you have shown an interest from small to grown, and that would matter.
Okay.
Will the class size stay at 165, or do you foresee it changing? In the
I
next
foresee it changing. When it changes, will it change? Do I foresee it changing? It'll go up. That's me. You heard it here first. There's always conversations, but I've worked there since 2004, and there's constant conversations.
Do you have opportunities for like a DVM, PhD, joint or dual enrollment?
So you can't get your DVM and PhD at the same time at Ohio State.
Okay.
You can get one and get the other either way. You know, you get your PhD first, then apply to vet school. You can do your vet school, then apply to your PhD program. But the only dual degree you can get, and that's a 5-year program, is the MPH DVM at Ohio State.
Okay.
Colorado State is one, and Georgia might be one, but beyond that, I don't know.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, I mean, you guys know where to find me. You can also email that, or you can email me directly. I'm Dawkins.12. Happy to answer any questions you might have. It's one thing you all have that some other people don't, is access. I'm in my office at least 3 days a week, so if you have time, you can come by. I have snacks. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. So thank you guys for coming. The only things I have, sorry I wasn't here at the beginning, I have a class before this, but scholarship applications are due tonight. So you can find the applications on our website, and then you can email them to me. It's faye.116 is my email. And then Dr. Niehaus reviews them, so it's completely unbiased. He'll review them, and then we'll announce them at the banquet. Other things, we have our social with Pilot Dogs coming up on the 13th, on Sunday the 13th. What else? Herd Jeopardy, if you're in a herd, we're doing Jeopardy with all the herds, so sign up for that if you're interested. But yeah, banquet's coming up on the 15th. If you signed up, put that on your calendars. And then also to go along with stuff that Sandra said, the PowerPoints that Marissa sent in the group chat, if you weren't able to go to the VEMCAS workshop, are really helpful. I made one of the PowerPoints and I literally copy and pasted from the VEMCAS like personal statement prompts into the PowerPoint. So I gave you exactly what the question's gonna say. So if you want to get started early, yeah. So I recommend getting started on that early as possible. But yeah, come to our last GB meeting in 2 weeks. The Columbus Zoo is coming. It's gonna be really fun. I'm super excited. But yeah, if anyone has any other questions, we'll be here. And thanks for coming. And thank you, Sandra.